this awesome tool that you each will be receiving as part of your group setup. Feedback. Okay, this tool is a Google Sheets that we will be using to help keep us focused and on track during our research project. You'll see at the bottom there are several tabs, and these correspond with the major assignments that will make up the final research paper. Just a heads up, the final research paper for this class is actually only 6 pages, and it is due on December 12th. But before you get too excited about only 6 pages, 6 pages is going to seem like a really small amount when you have to cram all this information in. So one of the ways that can be less terrifying and ruin your Christmas a little less is if you use this tool and stay on track. So when it comes down to writing each of these sections of the paper, you have the information you need and you stay focused. So you'll see tab number 1 is labeled research questions. You're going to go through once you have your research questions approved, and you're going to enter them into each of these little boxes. If you only have 2 research questions, that's fine. Your group name will go here, your research topic will go here, and each of the questions will go in the box, like I said. Then, this is the magic of the spreadsheet. Then, when we move on to the methods and sampling framework, which is due on Halloween, you will just click on over to this next section, and your research questions would have already populated. How cool is that? So as you are coming up with your population and your sample and how you're going to recruit those people, you know which research question they correspond with. This is huge because usually we are having to flip back to our research questions or revise sections of the paper because we have forgotten what we have done in previous assignments. So, while this spreadsheet is not required, I highly recommend that every group use it to keep track of what you have already done. Trust me, it will make your life so much easier, and come December 12th, you will be so much happier with yourselves. So, like I said, there are formulas inside the spreadsheet itself so that everything you fill in populates over into the next one. For example, now let's pretend that you've finished your research questions and your methods and sampling framework. You've received your feedback, you've made the necessary corrections, you've entered it all into the spreadsheet, so you have all that information. When you go to write your survey questions, because you've already entered that information, they will already be there, and that will help you remember why you are writing these survey questions and what those survey questions need to be. This spreadsheet is especially helpful for the survey questions, the results section of the paper, and the discussion section, because most groups get off track in these sections, and when you get off track, you have to go back and rewrite. And bad news bears, when I grade your papers, I always refer back to your research questions. I will always have your research questions open as I am grading your papers, not just your final research papers, but also the methods and sampling framework, your survey questions, your results. All of those, I will have the research questions open. And if you are not answering your research questions, you will be getting points off and you will be rewriting. And both of those are a giant pain. So, for example, I know it's hard to see because these aren't frozen, but if our research question was, what is the parent's perception of their health, of their child's health? Sorry about that. This is who I'm surveying. I'm surveying people in the South Bronx, East Harlem, Central Brooklyn, etc. How am I going to reach those people to answer my research question? I'm going to do a pen and paper survey. I'm going to walk up on the street to people in local establishments and I'm going to ask them to answer my survey. And what am I going to ask them? Well, here are the research questions right here that correspond with that particular research question. So if I want to know what is the parent's perception of their child's health, this is how I'm going to answer that. I'm going to ask them, in your opinion, what is the general health of the children living in your household? As far as you know, do any of the children living in your home need or use medicine prescribed by a doctor other than vitamins, etc.? I understand that the example provided is from a much larger paper than what you are going to write. Like I said, your paper will be about 6 pages. This is from a 100-page paper. So I understand that yours is going to be somewhat less detailed, but this is just used to show you that it needs to flow through. Like you can see here with these survey questions, you are probably going to need to ask multiple survey questions to answer one research question. Okay, let's move on to the next section. So now we have written our research questions. We have written our methods section. We have written our survey. And what are we going to do with that information we get from the survey? Well, we're going to do this. We're going to do a Pearson's chi-square, crosstabs, frequencies for each of these questions. And that's how we're going to answer our research question. And you can see this goes down. Sometimes there are different equations that work with different types of questions, and this spreadsheet will just help keep you on track. It is okay if you come up with your statistical testing plan before your data comes in from your survey. Actually, that's a really good plan. So as you're writing these survey questions, keep in mind what the data is likely to look like, and you can fill in what you would want that test to look like. Okay, this is the last section of the paper. And this is the section of the paper that people really struggle with, and we'll talk about more as we get closer. This is one of the reasons that you really want to use this spreadsheet, because you're going to get to the end of the semester and you're going to be rushed. And most people haven't written a lot of discussion sections, and unfortunately this course does not do the best job of explaining to you how to write that discussion section. So I'll supplement with that. I'll read over your discussion sections, I'll offer the assistance I can, but really this tool is one of the things that will help you. So a discussion section is basically where you discuss the so what of the results that you found. And you use it to make sure that this research question, or this one, is thoroughly answered. So if we scroll over, remember how we talked about the statistical test? Well, now we're going to say what that statistical test means. Then we're going to connect it to previous sources, and then we're going to add in the relevant citations. This is huge. Having this information here lets you quickly put it into paragraphs and finish up that last section of the research paper. So here are the major sections of your research paper. You have your research questions, methods and sampling, survey questions, results and statistical tests, and finally your discussion. Once you have filled in each of those sections, you will have your entire research plan. And if you were to scroll across, you could see this is entirely filled out. Filling this out will really help you with that final research paper and with that final research poster that you're each going to complete individually. So I highly recommend that you use this. You are not required to use it, like I said, but I highly recommend that you do use it as you move forward. And this is something that will be shared with not only you, every member of the group, but with me as well. So if we have a meeting, we can pull it up and say, okay, let's refer to this. We're going to refer to the third research question or whatever. One more thing to keep in mind, when you do get to that survey questions section, you'll notice at the very bottom, there is a section that says, do you have any survey questions that are not listed above? Yes or no. In all likelihood, you will have survey questions that are not listed above that maybe don't relate to a research question as well as they should. In that case, you can either remove them, or maybe you did have a little bit of extra room in your survey, and these are just nice to know, icing on the cake type questions. In that case, you'll say yes, and you'll just list those questions right here. So you know if you have extra time or room, you can go back and add those to the paper. And this is where you should fill this out as just a thought experiment of why did you ask these questions? Why did you include these? If the reason you included them was just because you're interested in them, well, why are you interested? Sometimes this will help you make recommendations for future research. Maybe you'll pull out a variable that you didn't initially explore. But when you get to the survey questions section, I highly recommend that you go through this process because it is really helpful in understanding what you did. Especially because lots of groups get to the end of the survey, they've collected their data, and then they realize they didn't actually collect data on any of their research questions, so they can't answer them. Asking yourself these questions before you send out the survey when it's kind of in that preliminary planning stage will help so you don't get to Thanksgiving and realize that you have no actual data. So just something to keep in mind. Let me know if you have any questions about this tool. I'm happy to help walk you through it individually, but another thing to keep in mind, this tool is imperfect. These boxes should expand to hold all the information that you put in them, but if you think the formatting's a little off, then just stretch the boxes as needed. You're probably going to need to stretch the boxes. So if you're wondering like, wow, my stuff disappeared, it didn't disappear. The formatting is just being a little funny. You might need to fiddle with it a little bit or let me know. Thank you.